F-4D is a strike target, go flat airfield, to go a sweep V sweep against the F-15s. The F-106s will be running a delayed pincer to pick up any F-15s. The idea, of course, is to have the F-4 jetties eliminate the F-15s and for us to hit the strike force before they hit their targets.
That pilot we've just seen wearing the Russian red star on his uniform, standing in front of a hammer and sickle, instructing his fellow pilots on how to down U.S. aircraft, is obviously not a Russian. He's a 29-year-old, real down-home country boy from Tennessee named Steve Whelan. Here at Nellis Air Force Base, just outside Las Vegas, Captain Whelan has been trained to think, live, and fight like a Russian in one of the most unique combat training programs in the U.S. military, called Operation Red Flag.
American pilots, often carrying live bombs, trained by trying to hit replicas of Russian targets in the desert. These targets are defended by the select members of the Russian squadron. At aggressor headquarters, I was briefed by the operations officer, Colonel Tree Story.
Good morning, John. Welcome to the TAC Aggressors.
The colonel said Operation Red Flag was set up following Vietnam because too many American pilots and planes were lost in combat against Russian MiGs and their Russian-trained pilots.
You can train American pilots to fly like Russian pilots, but how do you train them to think like Russians?
We give him a lot of academics concerning the man, the Russian man, his ideology, his background, his selection process, the type of training he undergoes, the airplane that he flies, and it's very easy for us to portray the Russian pilot.
Okay, let's go.
He believes deeply in his heart that he's doing the right thing in defending the motherland, Russia, and he's good. We only take the best. Our men are handpicked, and they have attained a level of maturity. They don't have the need to go out and prove how good they are to each other.
I think anybody who flies an aircraft to begin with, be it a small airplane or a fighter, really does get a feeling of high ego, if you will.
If he has a healthy ego, he got it because he flies a good airplane.
Sometimes we're known as hot dogs.
We make sure that we don't get negative feedback concerning a man's personality because we believe we can teach him to fly. Teaching him to change his personality is much more difficult.
Sometimes we're known as the Tom Snyders of the military. You have to be rather innovative at times. You have to be reasonably aggressive so as to provide maximum amount of training.
Aggressive? You won't find a more aggressive group.
How do enemy tactics differ from American tactics?
In most cases, he is more regimented. He is more closely under the control of the man on the ground who is controlling him via radar.
And snails entering that high eagle marking from the west.
In combat, Russian pilots aren't as free-flying as our Americans. They're guided by ground control officers, usually women. Steve's ground controller holds the rank of captain.
When a pilot has to travel at those speeds and turn at 4 Gs or whatever, and he only has a second and a half possibly between life and death, how do you keep from throwing up?
After the mission, Steve and his fellow pilots go through an extensive debriefing session. After that, they get a chance to relax with more target practice. Wherever I went in their quarters, I saw constant reminders of their mission. Red stars, enlistment posters, books on Soviet life, pictures of Lenin on the wall, more red stars on their coffee cups, more books on Soviet life, Uncle Karl Marx needs you posters, and finally a place where Soviet life could be forgotten. They are all dedicated Americans with a sense of humor, so their favorite poster is Snoopy. The day we were there, that sense of humor was in evidence. One pilot who had flown his last mission before being transferred was given a going-away bash. He was bashed by the ground control officer. She said she'd saved him from being hit in the air so she could get him in the locker room.
The men become very close. They travel in terms of groups of 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks, all over the United States. They're gone over 33% of the time.
Following goodbyes to old friends, Steve and his squadron were back up in the air, flying against and training new pilots. I asked one of the trainees what it felt like to be shot down.
When you see yourself on film or tape being shot down, you learn real quick how to avoid it the next time.
When I really feel good is when I get shot. I know the other guy is doing the best he can to get me.
Well, I think we all feel about the same way. We don't want to go to war. But if we do go, we want to be the best there is.
We don't consider it a game. We run an element of risk in any air-to-air environment. Flight safety is paramount. However, the training, the realistic training that we're striving towards does not come without some price.
Flagging 1, you're left 11 o'clock, 8. How come I'm not hearing Arch?
During these operations, some ground control officers have actually seen blips disappear from the radar scopes. blips that represented the very real cost and lives of American pilots. Operation Red Flag is probably the most realistic and dangerous training program in the military. Since 1976, there have been 20 crashes and 17 fatalities. That there are dedicated men and women like Steve Wiedlin taking these kinds of risks in peace to protect American war makes the real people in this country real lucky.